Sunday. Welcome, everybody, to the Sunday Show here on the line. I'm Matt Dillahunty. I'm here with Jimmy Snow. And unfortunately, I have to start today off with some bad news. Some of you may have been familiar with Dargendorp. His name was Andy. He lived in Germany. He was a mod on my Twitch channel. He was always wonderful and eager to assist. He maintained a list, a text-based list of every talk I'd ever given, every video debate that was hosted on other channels and things like that. It was tinyurl.com/themattlist, but I think that may have been hosted on one of his machines, so it's not up now. But Dargendorp, despite being around my age, died on Friday. And his partner contacted me, contacted Jimmy, and through some people to let us know. I haven't spoken to her directly. But over the many years that I knew him, we never met in person. Andy was just always the guy I would go to, if I had a question about this, or whether it was something silly like, how do you say this in German, to I'm having a problem with my PC. He was always there, incredibly helpful. And he corrected me on multiple occasions and changed my mind on several issues. And I greatly respected both his feedback and his thoughts and his contributions as a moderator. I don't have specific details on his death, but I know that his partner discovered him in bed, and I've heard that there's an investigation. But considering he was nearly my age, I suspect that it was a heart attack or a stroke or an aneurysm, something sudden like that. I've also just been told right before we were going live, which ties into us being a minute or so late starting because I was distracted, that he had no will. And that's not shocking for someone our age. I don't have a will. I'm 54. Everything, his father is evidently going to have a Baptist funeral for him, which I know him well enough to know that would be a point of frustration. But unfortunately, his partner, because they weren't married, will basically lose everything, including housing. And so I'll be making a will. But in the meantime, should I die from this point forward, please consider this my last will and testament done of my own volition. Arden's not even here in town, so can't be holding anything over my head. Anything and everything I own, my brother should work with Arden to figure out what the hell to do with it. I trust both of them, and that should be it. I don't have shit, so it's pretty easy. But for someone I never met in person, he had a huge impact on my life. He was one of the first people I contacted after deciding to leave the atheist experience. He was one of the people that I contacted whenever there was some other rift or problem. He was in my Twitch moderating it all the time. And we spoke almost daily in some form or another, or with whatever frequency I streamed. We would have those conversations along with others. There may be more updates on this in the future, but for any of you who've seen Dargendorp in chat, either here or on my Twitch, please know that we're going to do whatever we can to assist his partner. I can't think of another person that I've never met in person who was more significant to me, and who the news of their passing has hit me harder. We may have updates on this later, and I'd just like to hopefully offer something beyond mere condolences to his partner, Mrs. Dargendorp, even if it's just help with a grocery quest. And those of you who knew him knew that grocery quests were a nearly daily occurrence. So Andy will be severely missed. We are incredibly grateful, and I'm going to dedicate the rest of what I do today to this person who gave his time with no thought at all to recognition or gratitude. Just, hey, I want to be part of the mission. I like what you do. And while he corrected me once to say that we weren't friends, I'm going to count him as one of my friends. and I miss him terribly. I was going to stream today, and I decided not to stream because I didn't want to go into Twitch and not have it be like normal. But things will go on and continue, and so yeah, that's welcome to the downer episode of the Sunday Show. To start off with someone in their mid-50s passing away. We don't know why, and because they didn't have a will, there's going to be a bigger impact on his partner. So please take care of yourself. Take care of the ones you love. Get yourself a will, because you could get hit by a bus.
Yeah.
And yeah. How you doing?
I'm all right. I wasn't as close, but I know a lot of people. I'm friendly with Andy, and I know a lot of people in my chats and a lot of moderators and stuff from the past. I actually reached out to some people who used to moderate as well for the channel, let them know, because I knew they knew Darg. I'm changing names every other sentence here, but yeah, I'm all right. It's sort of because what Matt and I were actually together on Friday, and we were hanging out, and then we were driving to go get dinner in separate cars, and that's when I got the information and basically called Matt and was like, "Hey, so before we get to the place,"
it was Saturday.
Was it Saturday?
Yeah, it was yesterday when we found out.
Why does this ring in my brain is impossible?
Wait.
Yeah,
no,
Friday.
You're right. You're right. I'm an idiot.
No, you're good. You're good. But yeah, and basically just called him and said, "Hey, we're about to be at the restaurant, but in case you want to just go, you should know this." And yeah, it's been I'm more sad for my friends who I'm watching be very impacted by it, but also sad generally. It's still a staple of, there are certain people in chat that if they just stop showing up, and that does happen from time to time, and it turns out they just are more interested in other programs, but Dargendorp's been around for so long that everyone would notice if Dargendorp just never showed up to anything else again. And so it's definitely a very, very sad day. Also, everyone should have a will. That was good advice, by the way. I do have a will. It needs updated. In fact, right now, some of the things in the will would be given to people or passed along to people that I don't want to have those things. So I will be updating.
Yes, give them to me instead.
Some of the stuff I'm referring to you don't want, but I'm sure there's plenty of stuff at my, we'll just do it's like, all right, here's how it works now. In this order, people get to come into my house and they get to play that old game show game where you run through the house with a certain amount of time, and whatever you can grab, you can take. And it starts with my brother, Jason. He gets to go first, and then Matt and Arden. And then, that's pretty much everyone I hang out with. So that's the list.
That's fair.
Yeah.
At this point, I don't want anything from anybody. I can't expect there's too many things that people actually want from me. But just in case, if you did want something, go to my brother.
Yeah.
He'll give you whatever you want.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. You've got a lot of wooden goods I would take.
What goods?
Wooden. Like your treasure chests. If Arden, I think, would keep the chests. The Maple Eye pool cues. Those would be cool to have. More to display. I don't even play pool, but because they look so cool. Anyway,
the bird's eye maple. Yeah. Anyway, enough of that.
What I want when you die has made this the darkest episode. Also.
Yeah. We've got lines open right now. We get call screeners here. This is the line, and it's the Sunday Show on the line, where we would like for you guys, especially if you are a believer either in something supernatural or religious, or have a serious point of disagreement with us on something, we'd like for you to call in and tell us what it is and why, in order to try to keep things less heated, because I genuinely want to not have like that. Just do your best to try to listen to the question and don't assume that we're leading you to some sort of trick with every question. It's very frustrating to watch this happen, because I think subconsciously people start to realize, hey, that's a pointed question. It must be leading to something. No, only thing my questions are designed to do is increase our understanding and get to what the truth is. And as long as your views are clear and true, they have nothing to fear from answering the question honestly. And if you And if I ask a question and it's like a yes or no question, just answer yes or no, and you'll get more time to clarify afterwards. Most of the time.
I'd like to add too, I think there are probably people watching, and that a couple of you are probably polite theists who right now know that it would not be the time to ask, hey, when a friend dies, does this make you reevaluate? Or you feel that it wouldn't be. I'm actually telling you, we'd be willing to take that call, or at least I would.
No, I would take that call in a heartbeat.
Yeah. Doesn't this make you reevaluate? Does it make you worry? Anything like that? Because I understand that that's a natural question and that a lot of people do have that impulse. And I have almost the impulse to answer now, the hypothetical, but I'm going to wait to see if somebody calls. And I'd love specifically to talk to a theist, especially who maybe is shaky on the idea, who maybe that's their barrier of, I don't want to believe anymore, but as friends and people die around, I can't let go. We'd be very happy to talk to those people.
It's also, this is something that's on my mind a lot. Dargendorp's death comes as an incredibly impactful shock. And I suspect that the next shock that I'm kind of anticipating is obviously when Dave dies. Dave Warnock, who has ALS, and his entire show is dying out loud and dealing with the process. I love the guy, and I hope the day never comes. I hope they cure it tomorrow, and this was all just a wonderful exercise. But it's something that crosses my mind, and it crossed my mind a little bit more after I went in for open heart surgery a year and a half ago. I feel great, doing fine. I'm a little slower and weaker than I was before, but I'm also older, and I've never been in particularly good shape, so it's not surprising that I'm weaker. But so if you're a theist caller, if you're a theist and you want to call in on that, please do. We're looking forward to all that. We have a couple of callers on the line right now. Let's go ahead and start with somebody who has a question for me, because I can't live without answering questions for me. So Emery in California, you're on the Sunday Show on the line. Welcome.
Hi. I had a question for you, Matt, about, you mentioned it on the Wednesday show that you had an argument on Twitter with someone about you going on Modern Day Debate. And so from the little bit I know about the situation, I don't personally see like a problem with you going on to the channel and doing debates with, whoever. I feel like conversations about the topics like promote skepticism, and like, you going on and challenging different beliefs, like, is kind of the whole point of what you're doing here and stuff. So I am just curious a little bit, I guess, about what their argument was, what your stance is, like, to clarify. So I don't know if you want to like steelman their argument and then clarify your position or what, but I guess I just wanted to like get some clarification on what the problem there is.
Sure. So briefly, Modern Day Debates portrays itself as a completely neutral platform, which means they're not trying to take down Nazis or take down Muslims or anybody else. It's just, hey, it's a free speech zone, and it's free speech zone in the incredibly naive sense. And there's a perception that they'll let anybody come on and debate anything because that is going to get clicks and drive revenue, and that it's not really about an ideology, and that if you have a neutral platform and you start putting white supremacists and Nazis on there to debate people's rights, you're contributing to the harm. You're essentially platforming bad ideas and giving them a bigger audience. My kind of take on all this is that I have, in fact, talked to the people running Modern Day Debates and expressed my concerns about different things. If I'm debating people who are religious, I'm debating people who are part of a, if not a majority, a much larger minority than I'm a part of. And while I have a platform or two that are probably bigger than Modern Day Debates, and I think, I haven't gone to look, but I think any debate that I'm in there tends to fall into the most popular things on their channel. So my participation there really bolsters the channel. And I love to do debates. I think they're important. And I look at it as the people that I'm debating are at least part of or representative of bigger groups. we're going to do some debates here on the line in a couple different formats. And I won't say we'll never have a white supremacist on here, but I will say we're not a fucking neutral platform here. Yeah. If there's somebody like that who comes on, who just is absolutely bigoted and wants to, you know, shit all over trans people and things like that, you know, we invite some of those callers to call into the Transatlantic Call-In Show and basically get educated or schooled, because, you know, might as well look at it that way. And so I can't say who will or won't be here, but we're never going to be a neutral platform taking tiny fringe views and sensationalizing them for clicks and attention. It'll be getting those people on to specifically say, look how awful this is, and here's how easy it is to counter and debunk that. Now, I was willing to have a conversation about whether or not my participation with modern day debates is in fact contributing to bolstering Nazis, but this individual made it clear that they viewed it as tacit approval, and then completely misrepresented my view, and then wouldn't call in. So I was like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah, there are values a lot of people have that are based on differences of what they find gross or repulsive, and sometimes it's personal. In my case, I have a personal disliking of that specific platform, and yet the fact that I have said I won't go on there, and that I want that, frankly, platform to fail, because it is so similar to a platform that I actually did collab with in the past, who the entire purpose of that venue was, let's chase dumpster fires and make money off of the dumpster fires. And I see that as being but I don't sit there and go to my going, I don't like that channel means, Matt, you shouldn't go on because I've decided I won't. And that's what I think the issue that popped up was this person who goes, I have my sensibilities and my claim is that this marks this and this because there's some similar example somewhere else that's different, but I pretend the nuance doesn't exist. Therefore, Matt, according to my sensibilities, you're a bad person, which is a ridiculous and so I have friends who go on modern day debates, including Matt. And whenever they talk to me about it, including Matt, I usually tease them for going on modern day debates. However, I don't hold it against any of them for doing so. It doesn't affect my relationship with them at all. And people need to figure that shit out a lot better, because there's so much projection of, I am so positive I'm in the right, and therefore everybody who doesn't agree with me down to the T and letter of how I wish they would live their life is evil. Or in this case, comparing Matt to approving of Nazism, essentially.
Yeah. Yeah, I think, I guess, sort of on a more broader conversation about it, I kind of struggle with like I don't know, like, to me, I feel like on one hand, it's like good to have the conversations because, like Matt said, where the debates you might have on this channel where you can easily debunk what they're saying, talk about why what they're saying isn't true, talk about like, you know, different things, then it kind of does educate people that might be leaning towards those beliefs and why they're problematic and things like that. Because, like, I don't know, I just feel like you do get into like this gray area, and I'm not sure where like exactly the line is or should be. And I mean, I largely agree with what you're saying and things like that. Like, obviously I don't feel like platforming Nazis is anything anyone needs to be doing, but I guess it's just kind of like, at what point is this like, I don't know. I don't know.
I get it. And
sorry.
There's a lot of, so this is one of the reasons why I had invited the individual to call in to potentially talk about it, because I'm open to the consideration that, okay, am I doing more harm than good by propping up a platform that's willing to do this? Because I don't like Richard Spencer, or let's just pick whoever the current grand wizard, dragon, whatever of the KKK is.
Duke.
I don't need to debate that person, and nobody else does either, because the KKK has less than a couple thousand members, no political power or presence, and are a mockable, laughable, cartoonish group of racists. Now, they don't represent all white supremacists, but the KKK is a non-issue. And so platforming them makes them seem like they're more of an issue. And so I don't need to have a KKK representative come in to debate, because I can honestly and fairly present their views and the counter and the objections to their views without them even showing up at all. And almost nobody that matters would remotely object to that. I don't need their opinion on human rights, because they've already disqualified themselves from the conversation. There's a contingent of people, especially on the left, who want to label a bunch of things as Nazis. The word fascist gets thrown around so much by people who, I'm not convinced know that much about it, and calling everybody Nazis and this other stuff. And I get what they're saying and I get what they're doing. But when you build up a boogeyman beyond the actual impact and power that they have, you give it more credence. And so I would debate Nazis every single day if we could guarantee that what we're doing continues to expose them as the ludicrous subjects of ridicule that they deserve to be. But you can't do that while claiming to be a neutral platform and going and allowing anyone. I mean, no offense to James or the people there. Have you seen some of the apologists they've been putting, Muslim apologists they've been putting up against me and others?
Yeah.
These people have a tenuous grip on reality. And my concern is that they'll pick somebody like that to debate the white supremacist who's actually prepared, and that will end up doing harm. That's what the concern is for me.
There's so much stupid inconsistency too, because at the end of the day, if we're going with this person believes that, therefore you can't, who are we left allowed to debate in the first place? Because yes, there's there are Nazis, and then there are quote unquote Nazis, the people you still associate. So for example, anybody who's belongs to an organization which has put tremendous effort into spreading an ideology which actually caused more HIV and AIDS to spread in poor parts of Africa, and did so without regard for them, but in an attempt to also collect their labor and money. I'm not categorizing that person as better than a Nazi, but shall I not debate a Catholic? Because that's their organization. Shall I not debate a person who belongs to an organization whose founder coerced underage girls into fucking and marrying him for the purpose and did so by threatening their eternal salvation, and then continued to talk about how basically dark skin is a curse from God, and then built up an organization which continued on with that until they legally really couldn't get away with it anymore, and now uses obscure language to still allude to that. In other words, am I still allowed to debate Mormons? Like, where are the lines on these things? And I think Matt pointing out that the KKK doesn't need to be debated, but that doesn't mean not all white supremacists don't need to be debated. If Tucker Carlson offers to come on, I'm in. I will do a debate with Tucker Carlson, who I consider probably the most prolific white supremacist there is. And so people's individual sensibilities, there needs to be an evaluation. Sometimes you're going to get it wrong. I think that the atheist community got it wrong largely by years ago when they started chasing clicks by constantly platforming flat earthers. And now there's an annoying number of flat earthers, and that might be our community's fault for doing that. It could be. I can't say for sure they wouldn't have grown also, but we didn't help if we didn't help actually push it away. So I don't know. The whole topic has lots of nuance, and you also have to accept that you're going to have imperfect people who sometimes are going to think platforming or debating this is consistent with my values and should be done, and then later will feel completely different about it. I would put myself in my own category of, I did a lot of response videos as Dear Mr. Atheist that today I simply wouldn't respond to a lot of the people I responded to in the past, because I think that it participated in a disgusting person first, not ideology first type of culture that, it's gross. Anyway, Emery, anything else before we let you go and jump into some other calls?
No, I don't think so. I think I pretty much, or like, I understand more now what the position is. And I think, for the most part, I think that, you guys have a good, frame of reference of who is worth debating and who is not. So I appreciate that.
And sometimes we'll make mistakes.
Yeah. Because no one's perfect.
Yeah.
And Matt, I'm sorry about your loss.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You guys have a good rest of your day.
Thank you. Bye.
Sorry, I'm actually replying to chat, which I guess I'll stop doing. So we've been here for almost a half hour, and the only thing we've really talked about is my past debates and other stuff. I know we got theist callers. I just want to address that. First of all, somebody in chat said it was a fallacious argument that the number of people didn't matter. My point about the number of people adhering to something is about who's platforming whom. With respect to punching up versus punching down, or who's granting a platform to someone, the popularity of an idea is important to that. Of course, I'm not remotely suggesting that we shouldn't platform tiny fringe groups, because yes, that would exclude atheism. Trust me, I understand free speech both with regard to the government and with regard to the societal structure impact. But yeah, also the people who were saying like, oh, you should go ahead because then it gives you the opportunity to savage them. And I'm like, that's not my goal either. I'm happy to make, bad actors look bad. But I'd rather make bad actors good actors.
Yeah. I'd rather make bad actors look wrong. That's the goal.
True. And then let them change their mind afterwards. But anyway, Ethan in Georgia, pronouns are he, they, is a theist with a question for us. You're on the Sunday show on the line. Welcome, Ethan.
Yeah, sorry for interrupting.
I didn't know you did.
No, it's all right. There's a timing issue that's going to have that happen many times.
Yes, you mentioned that. So did the blurb that I mentioned come up, or do I need to describe it?
Well, you should still describe it.
Yeah, so I'm on the spectrum, Asperger's syndrome. I'm high functioning, so it's more of like a social thing than an intelligence problem. But I've noticed, and I need to mention this, my living conditions, I have to go to church. I'm going to be a little quiet because there are people here who will probably get angry if they overhear this. But moving is not an option, and I've noticed I started watching a lot of the atheist shows, and they're very informative and enlightening, and help me redefine what I thought was an atheist. And I think a lot of people, like who I'm with, think is an atheist, and I've started to understand the logic of that, and I've come to that. But I've noticed when I have to go to church, the pastors or the religious leaders who are following are very charismatic, and it makes me feel targeted, and I like they're speaking to me in like a way that's weird. And I wanted to know if there's any way to mitigate that, and like feel less of that kind of pull other than leaving, because that isn't an option.
So to make sure I'm understanding, your concern is that it feels like they're talking to you?
Yes. So like, I guess it's because it's like vague discussion. You know how it's like, they have this service that's called Lost, and my mind is telling me, oh, that's God. He's telling you, don't follow those atheists. You need to follow Jesus when you come back. It's like that.
Yeah,
I don't know if I'm describing it right.
That's kind of the. Oh, go ahead.
No, sorry. I listen a lot about your pattern, how humans are pattern-seeking individuals, and I was wondering if, like, you had ideas to get out of that pattern-seeking behavior. This is to Matt. I have not seen much of Jimmy.
So, no.
No.
Apart from being conscious of it and recognizing, when you're doing it. I mean, the whole purpose of preaching is to do that, to get people into that headspace and to exploit that. If you're consciously, if you're aware that it's happening, are you not aware at the time and you just are aware of it afterwards? Hello?
Ethan,
Hello?
did we lose you?
Hello?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm back. Sorry. I just kind of get swept in to like the emotions and like the preaching involved, and I don't realize when it's happening. It might just be because I'm easily like swayed. I'm a weak-minded individual. Their Jedi mind trick is working.
How old are you, Ethan?
Older than 18. I'm
That's all right.
worried.
Yeah, under 25 or no?
Yes.
Okay. So just some of the things that you're mentioning, a couple things. Broadly, no, we can't tell you how to get away from having a brain that's pattern seeking, because that's an important part of your brain. You're supposed to be pattern seeking. So educating yourself on fallacies, if you haven't done that already, definitely do. Look them up, learn them, see lots of examples, watch people debate, talking about them. That's one of the most useful things I did, and one of the most useful ways to not just be better at countering people's arguments, but also just be a better skeptic in general, as long as you're also pointing those inward and going, am I committing confirmation bias? Am I committing whatever? I will say it is easier in younger years. I don't know your exact age, but to manipulate people that way, and that is something that a lot of people, I don't want to say grow out of, but they become a little bit more self-aware as they get a little bit older. And the concept of like, you can start to feel more of still a sense of individuality in a large crowd of people. That said, it doesn't happen to everybody, and people who are deeply programmed, and that's the thing they do every week, they can even have, my dad's kind of that way, where my dad has self-awareness, except when it comes to church. Everywhere else, he seems to be pretty self-aware, but when it comes to church and religious ideas, he doesn't. And so they could build up those walls. So you wouldn't want to not be pattern seeking, because that saves your life all the time. However,
Yes.
you do want to be aware that you're pattern seeking and learn the things, largely talking about fallacies, learn the ways in which that pattern seeking can fool you if you're not investigating your own conclusions easily enough. Or
That's a
think
good
one
way
of
to
the
put
best-
it.
And probably one of the best pieces of advice I can offer is to make a game out of it. Since you know what's likely to happen while you're there, make a game out of it. Can you figure out and detect when they're getting ready to, use a propaganda technique or find a particular fallacy or make some, appeal, and take notes. That can help you, get to a better understanding of what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Like that does make sense, and I will employ that. I don't know if it counts as a game, but I've counted. I started to notice a pattern in my church. They bring up C.S. Lewis a lot, which I thought was pretty funny because Narnia. But he mentioned the pastor mentioned the quote about people like idols break the hearts of the servants, and I'm like, oh, I guess we shouldn't have crosses or fish symbols or whatever.
Yeah, there's C.S. Lewis, while certainly famous for Narnia, was also a Christian apologist. And
yeah, I know that.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Religious people like famous religious people. It's you hear about a lot. I think it might also benefit you just hearing about your story and where you're coming from to maybe go to YouTube and watch videos of services of religions that you don't agree with, that you already do know aren't true, and witness that other people get whipped up into a frenzy of emotion also, and see that it's a technique based on action, not the actual truthfulness of the words that are being said. It's like group hypnosis almost. Yeah.
But I definitely would recommend taking notes. Take notes and come up with a marking system for when you hear something that has a significant impact on you. Take note of that and mark it with, a star. And then when you hear something that, you hear something and it triggers something in your brain that goes, hang on, is that bullshit? Put a poop emoji there or whatever. And then you can go back through your notes later and kind of look for, why did this have such an impact on me? Or what is it about this that, is causing me to question or lean a particular direction? And then you can take time to think about it, or you can ask other people to help you identify what it is. And over time, you will basically build up an understanding of the subject so that, like if you watched someone do card tricks and you had no idea what they were doing, you're just going to get fooled and fooled and fooled. But once you start to learn how the card tricks work, now you can watch it with a different appreciation, where you're not going to get fooled as much, but you're going to have an appreciation for how they do it. And so that way you'll also be able to appreciate when they're doing it badly. And that goes for magicians and for preachers as well.
I believe as a magician yourself, you know exactly like how that works.
I know a couple things.
It almost becomes more impressive. I only got into card sleight of hand, but when you see then somebody pull off stuff that still looks like magic to you, that's some of the best feeling.
My buddy JT does stuff that fries my brain all the time.
Yeah.
My favorite card trick of Matt's was that one lady who tried to use, I don't know, like phone chargers to tell like the truth or not, and you just held up a card and said, if you get it right, you get more time. Like, that was the best ultimatum I'd seen in a while.
Yeah.
Ethan, I do want to ask you, we don't have to go deep into it. I know you got to be quiet where you are, but you've called in with the label theist. So I want to know what your relationship to the question is. Do you believe in God?
It's weird. Like I mentioned, there's like a pool, like I want to, even now. Like when I hear the pastors doing sermons and they got a whole chapter on the prodigal son today, and I felt like, oh, that's me. I want that to be me. And it's like, no, don't do that. Like I clearly am programmed to want to go back to that.
Do you feel like
I don't like that?
Do you feel like then you would feel similarly, not necessarily about the truth, but you'd feel good about the lesson and the things you heard if you were attending a community that was telling like the story of Faramir instead of the Bible's prodigal son, the Lord of the Rings prodigal son, and you were around a bunch of people who were reflecting on it, you were listening to it by a person who's very charismatic and into Lord of the Rings. Do you feel like you would have much different of an experience if it wasn't anchored on something that the question of whether it's fiction or not is supposedly up in the air?
Honestly, I'd probably be even more swayed if it's Lord of the Rings, because I'm a bigger fan of that right now.
Yeah.
Wait,
so
are you saying you could be swayed towards Lord of the Rings being real?
Ethan, did we lose your mic again? I think Ethan was trying to say he would be more into and have a better experience in a community that was Lord of the Rings based. Oh, there we go. Ethan, you back?
I was just saying I'm a Lord of the Rings fan.
Yeah.
I think I got to go now. Thank you for the call. I'll keep this in mind.
Yeah. Thanks, Ethan.
Thank you. Good luck. Call us back if you get issues.
Mm-hmm.
Had Ethan had more time, I was simply going to say it's worth observing, and hopefully Ethan gets to listen to this after. It's worth observing the things that you feel pulled toward. Are they things that you would feel pulled toward whether the God actually exists or not? And if so, do secular versions of those things exist? Or just do other versions of those things exist? Does it have to be hearing about the prodigal son, or is the story of Faramir good enough for you? And would a community surrounding that? Now, I do know it's tough for people who have rituals, for people who have patterns in their life that they like to maintain. When you leave religion, sometimes the alternatives to that don't present themselves and aren't necessarily easy to find. And sometimes we get people who call in asking about where to find an atheist community, and we try and do a little bit of research and end up saying like, hey, man, or woman or non-binary pal, maybe you should start that community because it actually looks like there isn't one very close by. And so it might be that you want to use tools like Meetup and see if you can begin something like that. I have yet to see anything that has a pull in toward religion that you can't find some alternative outside of it that is good. That is a good thing, basically. A good thing from religion that you can't find an alternative to.
I used to have a kind of standard bet of, I'd love for somebody to show me something that is true, specifically tied to a religion. Something, it's not just, oh, my religion talks about love and you value love. Yes, of course. Show me something that's true and identifiable and specifically tied exclusively to your religion, because I'm not aware that religion brings anything exclusive and true. But
yeah, there was somebody in the chat earlier. We will, as long as you stay honest, we'll take the call calmly. But if you want to call in and defend the assertion that Tucker Carlson's not so bad, I'd take that call. I'm just saying.
And I'd let him take that call, because honestly, I have such a distaste for Tucker that I couldn't even begin to list why. So I'm not the right guy for that.
There's a great starter place if anybody wants a great place to figure out what to articulate what it is about Tucker you hate. John Oliver's done an incredible episode on not just Tucker, but Tucker's ties to white supremacy.
I've seen it. I just don't have it memorized because this is not something I ever thought I'd remotely have to debate.
And yeah, I don't know if he's about to become bigger than ever or if he's going to fade into obscurity. I'm hoping for the latter. Few announcements.
Me too.
Few announcements for the coming week. We have a great week on the show tomorrow on Skeptalk. Set your watch and then give yourself a good amount of time because Forrest and Erica Gutsick Gibbon are returning to host Skeptalk at 6 p.m. Central Time. The same time the next day, I will be joined on Hostility with Aaron Lewis. That's going to be an awesome show, I think. This Wednesday, Matt will be joined by Be Good. That's Brady Goodwin, but I believe stage name Be Good. And for those who are wondering, we did reschedule David Tamayo for the following Wednesday. So not this coming Wednesday, but David will return the Wednesday after that on the 10th of May. And then this week's episode of Transatlantic Call-In Show, hosted by Arden and Katy, the original crew, the OGs. And then lastly, I did mention on Thursday's episode of Transatlantic that I would probably be doing a Zoom with patrons today. That is not going to happen. We don't have a hard stop today, so we may go a little bit longer than we usually do, but I have some projects I am in the middle of that I need to finish up, some of which have to be finished by midnight tonight because it's the final day of the month. So patrons, probably later this week. I'm actually eyeballing maybe before the hang up this Wednesday, but you'll see announcements over on Patreon. If you aren't already, go to patreon.com/calltheline. We right now do exclusive Zoom hangouts with our patrons, but we will be, with everything that happened recently, moving forward, the plan is to have a big emphasis on good extra content and exclusive perks for people who are supporting not just the channel, but the organization and our mission and our plan for the future to open a facility, to expand into a lot of different avenues and everything. We want to make sure that that's a good value. You get some money's worth out of it. Other than that, I'm ready to take another call. You are more than welcome to keep driving.
All righty. We have Lewis Franzohim in is it Nebraska that you're calling from, Lewis?
Yeah, Nebraska.
Well, welcome to the Sunday Show on the Line.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Go ahead.
Well, the reason I was called, I have a son who's going to be 3 years old here in just a few months. I've started giving thought to bigger questions that he could have down the line, besides what's red or blue or how do you count to 10. Because at one point in time, his mother and I were theists. We attended the same church, and we still have friends connected to that church who are going to be raising their children in it. My son's going to be friends with those kids, and inevitably he's going to be confronted with questions about religion, questions about belief. And while I'm confident in my ability to give him tools, provide him tools, teach him how to think, I also have significant questions for myself about where to draw the line on teaching him what to think. Because while I, do not agree with that church or theism in general at this point in my life, I don't want to be authoritarian about it, because that's committing the same mistake I think a lot of theists make, of just telling you what to think, regardless of whether I'm also giving him tools to hopefully protect himself. Especially because, religions, like, we came from the Mormon church. They do an exceptional job, I think, of trying to indoctrinate especially young kids who might have been shown this is how you think, this is epistemology, but don't, have the wherewithal to use those tools themselves. So where do I draw that line? How do I figure out where that is?
So you decided to call two childless people.
But I was a Mormon child. I can speak to some of this.
Yeah. My standard lines, teaching them how to think and not what to think, you've already kind of addressed. And so my thing is, I would just, figuring out where to draw the line is going to be different for you and for your kids. What I would do where I am in this situation is I would always be open and honest with my kids in the same way that I've always been open and honest with my niece and nephew. They know what I think whenever they care to ask. And I would tend to say things like, kids will often say, "Dad, what do we believe?" And I love that question comes up, because it allows you to both address what you believe and why it may not necessarily be what we believe. The notion that we all have to believe the same, or that because we're in the same family, their family are Mormons, our family are atheists. It allows you to address that, to say, well, here's what I think. Your mother may feel slightly differently. Your grandparents may feel slightly different. People have a lot of different views on this. Here's what I think and why. And you're going to need to make up your own mind. But you then get to have the conversation about, how do you go about making up your mind? What would count as good evidence? If somebody tells you, hey, I have a pet fire-breathing dragon, you can use examples like that. One of the biggest things is especially when they come up with a question where you don't have a good answer, it's always good to teach that early on that you can answer with, and probably should answer with, "I don't know, but let's see if we can find out." And if together we can't find out, then maybe nobody has a good answer to this yet. But if we found out together, now we've learned the tools for actually discovering those answers. So, hey, how old's the universe? Well, it's 13.7 billion years. Okay, cool. They got their answer. But you can talk about the how and why behind that answer. Or, why is this moral? Why is that immoral? Where should we draw a line for this? You can get into a lot of nuance, and by encouraging them to think for themselves and to let them know that the answer is not the right answer merely because it comes from you, but that whenever you are right, you would like for that answer to be right because of the evidence and, the process that we got there, and that it's most consistent with reality. The other thing is, don't freak out. Your kids at some point may come to you and be like, "I want to go to this church with my friends." I would not freak out. Talk to them about it, about why they want to go. A lot of this, what churches and the Boy Scouts, the Cub Scouts, all these make use of. They go into schools, they get a handful of kids, and then they get those kids to get involved with the other thing. So now, if I want to hang out with my friends, and my friends are all doing this, and it takes place at a church. The best thing you can do is love your kid, be honest with your kid, and encourage them to think for themselves, and let them know that no matter what they wind up thinking or believing, that you're still there for them, that they don't need to hide something from you, and they don't have to necessarily fear disappointment. And that in the interest of honesty, my last little button on this is, if I had kids, one of the things is that we lie to kids all the time. You can be anything you want. I'll love you no matter what. I'll never be disappointed in you. You can let them know that, yeah, I can be disappointed in you, but that doesn't mean that I'm mad at you. It doesn't mean that you're bad. I could be wrong, or I just might not understand what's going on. My disappointment doesn't have to define your self-worth and your your value. And as long as you're coming to me honestly, even if I express my disappointment honestly, we can still have a discussion about it. It doesn't need to be the, oh, you're dead to me, type thing.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Only thing I would add, I mean, my short version of the answer is you teach them, as far as how to think, you teach them skepticism. Most of the other stuff you're worried about is going to work itself out, I think. But as far as controlling their actions go, it's just a matter of you have a responsibility, if you're in America for 18 years, to make sure that your kids live and are safe. And that's where you put your restrictions on what they can do. So if a child's asking to do an activity with friends at a church that you have no reason to feel like their safety is in jeopardy, I don't think there's a problem with, like Matt said, don't freak out. But if it's, the youth pastor at the Catholic Church is taking a special interest with me and wants me to help him prepare sacraments late in the evening, maybe wouldn't do that based on past stuff. So evaluating safety is the bigger concern when it comes to what actions you're restricting.
Okay.
Yep.
If you don't mind, I think I've come up with a follow-up question in the course of conversation that is I've still got time.
Yeah.
Because these kids that he's going to be growing up with, our friends' kids, at times I know they're going to wind up being over here at my house. And as they get older, I'm certain there'll be moments where they'll have those conversations, possibly even with me nearby. Do I have any kind of responsibility, like if there's something being taught to him right there, step in and say, well, here's an opposing viewpoint, or would it be better to wait until those kids have left and I can kind of talk to him about it after?
How old's the kid?
Well, right now he's 3, but we know he's going to get older.
Yeah, for sure. I never felt it was useful when my parents had kid gloves on, which was for a very short period of my time. But I from a younger age would have been preferred to been spoken to honestly. And if you think something is wrong, tell me not just that it's wrong. That's all my parents did. That's wrong. You can't do that. Tell me why and teach me how to evaluate those things for myself, which is literally my parents didn't do any of that. It was the things that are right are what I tell you are right. And the things that are wrong are the things that I tell you are wrong. And if you ask for justification or you ever push back, you're in trouble. Don't do that. And I think you're going to be fine.
Okay. Well, I think that'll be easy enough. That the I'm right because I said so has never quite been my style with friends or family.
That's my parents' entire style.
I will say that
Yeah.
My take on the last question that you talked about, and I may have misunderstood it. My brain may have wandered off in a slightly different direction. But if I had a kid and his friend was over and his friend was either doing something or encouraging something that I felt strongly about, I'd be happy to correct my child right there in front of the other child so that I get a lesson out, provided that the lesson I'm teaching is one that isn't a matter of indoctrination into an ideology. It's just, no, we don't do that here. We're going to treat people with respect. We're going to, share things, teach. It's not like I'm going to tell that kid, no, you don't get to pray at my house. I wouldn't do that. But, encouraging, ethical, responsible, respectful interaction, definitely would do that and offer that correction right in front of somebody else's kid. And if they don't like it, okay, we'll have a talk with the parents at some point about it.
All right. Well, thank you very much.
Yeah. Thanks, Lewis.
Thanks, Lewis.
Yeah. Condolences to you, Matt. And yeah, you have a wonderful weekend.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I'm still a little nervous about the next time I stream, and it's really weird because there may only be like a dozen people watching me play a game, but it's the one person that I just kind of counted on as the always in the channel. Isn't going to be in the channel. That's really strange to me.
It wouldn't surprise me too if it's going to hit you. I think for me, it would hit me harder after the 4th or 5th time, where it's like, look, the first or second time they could be on vacation with their family. My brain doesn't have to commit to it being weird yet. But at some point it's going to become conspicuously strange and different. And yeah, that's
Are you ready for this call?
Yeah. I know. I see what you say. Yeah.
Emmanuel in California, you're on the Sunday show on the line. Welcome.
Did we drive you out of Texas, Emmanuel? Why'd you move?
Oh, I didn't move. I'm just here for a short talk.
Oh, you used to call from Texas. Now it says California.
Yeah, I mean, right now I'm in California, but I didn't move to California.
That's right. You drive. I think you told us you drive truck, right?
No, I don't. I don't drive truck. It's just that I just came here to see my family.
Okay. Cool. Go ahead.
So it says here that you want to talk about how Kanye West was right about the drug industry. I don't know. I don't know what he said. I don't know whether I agree or not or what it's relevant to, but go ahead and tell us what you're thinking.
Yeah, man. That dude actually, he started off with a lie. Now he ended up in a truth. And now you could actually see what, whenever he's on TV or whatever, he just spits out a lot of truth. Right now, I think...
Emmanuel, wait. Emmanuel, when he's on TV, he spits out a lot of truth. Was it truth when he says he loves Hitler? Because I watched him say that on TV.
He said he loves Hitler.
Yeah.
I mean, he was just trying to... Like, what I think is he meant to say that, history is biased, kind of thing. I don't think
I don't know how you get history is biased out of I love Hitler, I love Nazis. I don't know what you get out of him holding up charts of him going, look at these these are all of the media agencies, and everyone highlighted in red has a Jewish executive. That's some of the stuff he was doing. But I'm willing to evaluate the individual take. I just think it's weird that you have this position of, because he's turned his mind over to Christ, so now he's willing to go on with Joel Osteen and say stupid things like strip clubs are human trafficking, because at the end of the night, they ask, how much traffic did we do? That's a real thing he said too. So anyway, go on about what is the specific claim of his that he used to be wrong about. Say that first, and then second, follow it up with what his now correct claim is.
I think what he talks about the drug industry and how the drug industry is very evil, and all the pharmaceutical company, how they're trying to depopulate like the earth and stuff. He talks about it. He quotes a lot of Revelation verses.
Hang on. Pause for a second. You're saying that Kanye says that the drug companies are trying to depopulate the earth, and you think that's correct?
I think that is correct, because
hang on. I asked a question, you answered it. If they depopulate the earth, who are they going to sell drugs to?
They don't want to kill everybody else. They just want to kill a certain amount of people.
Why?
And
why, Emmanuel? Why do they want to kill a certain amount of people?
Yeah, I guess if I go by his words, he said...
No, why do you think? Because you said he's correct, so I don't care if it's your words or his words. Why? What is the correct answer? If it is correct that they just want to kill people, what is the correct answer for why they want to kill people?
Oh, I think, 1/3 of the people will die with famine, 1/3 people will die of disease. So the pharmaceutical companies and all this big corporation, they are trying to they're saying that there's a lot of people out there, so there will be scarcity towards.
You're not answering my question.
So we have to.
Emmanuel,
okay, I'm sorry.
What is the motivation for a pharmaceutical company, which every year posts profits and every year demonstrates that their goal of each year, because by the way, I don't disagree with that pharmaceutical companies are largely evil. Why we think they're evil is clearly different. So every year they post profits, they post and they emphasize when they manage to make more profits than the year prior. What is the motivation of a pharmaceutical company to kill as many people as they can, or whatever number you think they're going to kill? What is their motivation to kill instead of to sell drugs to as many people as possible, to kill people?
I think, people are becoming more wicked, so God is trying to kill out a lot of people.
What is the motivation of the pharmaceutical company to kill people?
They're just doing it
because they like to kill? Is that what you're going to say?
No, okay. God wants to kill 1/3 of the population.
So Emmanuel, God is forcing the pharmaceutical companies to kill 1/3 of the people, and that makes them evil.
Yes, because they have been
false. Emmanuel, you just said that God is making them kill, which means they are doing God's will. And you have said on many occasions that, including with slavery, if it's God's will, that makes it good. So if the pharmaceutical companies are killing 1/3 of the people because God wants them to, according to your arguments, they're not evil. They're in fact good, correct?
No, I don't think it is a good thing.
Is it good to do what, in your worldview, is it good to do what God wants you to do?
I mean, sometimes, of course, but not all the time.
So when is it evil to do what God tells you? When is it evil to do what God asks you to do? Give an example.
So what I think is, evil exists because God would allow it to happen. It's still
no. Emmanuel, you just said that evil is happening by God's command. That God is making.
That's what Kanye said. That's what Kanye
you just said it. You said that they are evil and that they are doing God's will.
If you agreed with him, why? Emmanuel, if you agreed with him, then why did you object to Jimmy saying you just said it?
I mean, it's like, this is not, if you see, I think you have to see like the whole interview to understand where he was getting at.
No, Emmanuel, nobody needs to see the fucking interview. We're talking to you.
Also,
you think that God wants pharmaceutical companies to kill off 1/3 of the population. When did this start, by the way?
He said it started on 2019. So I agree with him. It started off like 4 years ago.
Okay. So in the past 4 years, the pharmaceutical company has shifted from increasing life expectancy from about 35 years in the West to over 70 years in the West to now seeking to kill off 1/3 of the population. What evidence do you have to support that this is happening?
I think he was quoted, like, if you look at the book of Revelation.
I didn't ask what you thought or what he was quoted as. I said, what evidence do you have that this is even happening?
Yeah, there's a research from Johns Hopkins University that, 245,000 people died because of the pandemic in the United States solely. If you look at the Western world, almost like
Emmanuel, what the fuck study are you referencing? Because way more than 245,000 people died because of COVID, and COVID was not a production of the pharmaceutical companies. It was a disease. It wasn't the medicine. It was the disease. So what study are you referencing to?
Right?
What's that?
But the disease was fabricated. It wasn't.
We don't know that. We don't know that. There are conspicuous reasons that I think it's fine to go like, hey, I'd actually like to eliminate that the Wuhan lab has nothing to do with the Wuhan outbreak. I'm fine with people feeling that way. We don't know that it was fabricated or lab made. And so even if it wasn't by a pharmaceutical company.
And
I
pharmaceutical
mean, we don't
companies
have an evidence
dramatically
that the
lowered.
pharmaceutical industry.
If pharmaceutical companies were trying to kill off a third of the population, why would they develop a vaccine for COVID that killed over 1 million Americans, for example? Not the vaccine.
After the vaccine,
COVID killed over 1 million
actually
Americans. And if they hadn't created a vaccine, it'd now be at 10 million or more. So why would they create a vaccine?
Yeah, when I said the vaccine, it has a lot of side effects, so I don't think they created a vaccine for the good.
Okay,
what
Emmanuel,
vaccine?
I'm going to let Jimmy handle the rest of this, because if I have to say or listen to another word from you, you will not like the outcome. I think this is completely unfair for anyone to try to have any sort of reasonable conversation with you, because you do not think clearly and have bought into conspiracy stuff and are so divorced from reality that continuing this conversation seems cruel.
Yeah. I've got a couple more things, but we will probably go. Let me just say right now, if you're watching right now and you're a theist, the bar is low. Call in and pass this current bar. Emmanuel, you said that the vaccine has lots of side effects, so it's not a good vaccine. Name a good vaccine.
Yeah. A good vaccine. I think vaccines are not good in general. For the most part, they create vaccines so that they can make a profit out of it. They don't do it for the
Emmanuel, the reason why you make large profits off of medication, the reason why pharmaceutical companies make so much money, is because people actually do need the medications. And you look at study after study, and you can see that our life expectancy has gone up, but also that to specific diseases that the pharmaceutical companies do create medication for, dying of those specific things are going down. We're actually getting to watch in real time as new drugs like Mounjaro and Ozempic and not remdesivir, that's a Rubelsis. There's a few more are becoming almost miracle. We can't call them cures, but drugs for people with diabetes, for example. And now they're more broadly going out toward people who have issues with being overweight that is affecting their health otherwise. We're getting to live see that. That's the short term, and we can see stuff in the long term. And for you to call and say, I think all vaccines are bad because they're trying to make money off of it. Look, I'm not a capitalist. I get it. We should heal people and we should be motivated to research because that's our responsibility to other humans for basically just being alive. It's a little more complicated than that, but that's the case. Polio has been all but eradicated, if not eradicated from the world via vaccine. Was that good or bad, Emmanuel?
Oh, well, in the same show, I guess.
Nope. Is that good or bad, Emmanuel?
It is good that polio
now,
is eradicated.
How many side effects does how many side effects does the polio vaccine have?
I think there's a couple of.
Yep, there are side effects from every vaccine. So if every vaccine has side effects, they are almost always short-term and recoverable from. But we'll say that every vaccine could have a few people who have, say, a massive allergic reaction or something. Is it better for side effects to hit some people and then subside, or to even kill a small portion of the population, again, with allergic reactions if you don't have the medication to recover from it, but a very tiny, or to have many, many, many more people sickened by polio, killed by polio, and crippled by polio? Of those two, way more sick and dead people, or the other option is perhaps a couple dead people, not in every case of every vaccine, but perhaps a couple of dead people and and then some people who have side effects that they recover from. Which one of those is the preferable outcome?
I think the preferable is the one that has less and less side effects.
Less and less side effects, or which one has more side effects, polio or the polio vaccine?
I think.
And are you concerned about more side effects or worse side effects?
I'm concerned about worse side effects.
Right. So which one has more worse side effects and more side effects, polio or the polio vaccine?
Polio.
So the polio vaccine is the better option, correct?
Yes.
Which one has more side effects, COVID or the COVID vaccine?
I think COVID has worse side effects.
It's not even a matter of think. It is objectively true. Which one kills more people, COVID or the COVID vaccine?
I think COVID killed a lot of people.
Which one kills more people, COVID or the COVID vaccine?
COVID.
So therefore, the COVID vaccine is better than not having the COVID vaccine, correct?
Yes, that's not even up for the debate. I'm not saying that
you've
the vaccine
called
is worse.
you said vaccines were bad, and now you've just agreed that they are at least better than not having them.
They are better, but it doesn't mean that we have to ignore the fact that the vaccine intentions were really bad and immoral.
What were the bad intentions of the vaccine? I'll give you one. To make a lot of money, to get your vaccine out before the other people do, and make a ton of money and limit the technology for that to go to other companies where you can to maximize your profits. However, to accomplish that, the vaccine must be effective. But I will say that the intentions of making a ton of money off of the vaccine, that sucks. All right. But it still gave us a good vaccine. You go now. What were the bad intentions?
I agree with you 100%. So can I ask you just one more question? About,
no, not yet, because you're still defending. You're on the side of that these vaccines themselves are bad, as though the cure for cancer would be bad if it was expensive. The expensive part for the cure for cancer would be bad. The cure for cancer wouldn't be. The vaccines aren't bad, but motivations of the companies that created them, you could either call immoral or amoral, depending on what your position on people profiting off of the healthcare system is.
Yeah, but not just the intention, but the side effects are not worth ignoring them. Like, for example,
who's ignoring them?
You see, I mean, you're ignoring it. Like just right now, you're
no, I'm not, Emmanuel. I have had 4 shots because I have chronic illness and I need to get the new one every time. I might be up to 5. Every time there's variants and stuff, I get the new shot. And every single time they make me read a thing that says, here are the possible side effects of this drug. And so far, no one has shown that any side effect outside of the known ones exist. So I don't ignore it when I take the shot, and I don't pretend that the day after I take the shot, I don't feel like I'm very open about, feels like I have a mild flu. And then I get back to normal. But you know what else happened? I got COVID at the beginning, and it ended up exacerbating my asthma for almost 2 years before it went back to better. I don't get that from the side effect. So what is it I'm ignoring, Emmanuel?
Like for example, there are side effects that they don't tell you. Like,
what's a side effect they don't tell you?
Like for example, I mean, this is like. This is not, I could tell you the source and you could go and look it up.
All I've asked you for is what is a side effect they don't tell you? And I don't know how you can give one they don't tell you if you have a source for it, but go on.
So it creates some mental disorders. It creates
what mental disorder?
Sexual activities.
Oh my God, Emmanuel. Where is your proof of any of that? You are a conspiracy. No, I don't know. Shut up, Emmanuel. I don't care. You are a conspiracy theorist. You are listening to Alex Jones level shit, and they go, "Oh, and the thing is, it's going to drive people away from Christianity because you take that shot, and then you're just willing to have sex with anything because you're just so ramped up all the time." You are a conspiracy theorist. You do not have a good reason to believe any of this. The next words out of your mouth need to be proof that what you just said is true. Otherwise, the call is over. Prove that it causes hypersexual activity and mental disorders. Go.
So there was a professor in the University of California, Berkeley. He said that he has done experiments on several, like organisms that, like they actually test those, drugs or chemicals or whatever, and the side effects were very, very bad. That they tried to put out the results that they have seen, and they were completely bad, and they were like silenced.
Then how did you find out about it?
Was like
no, Emmanuel. They were banned and completely silenced. How'd you hear about it?
I heard about it because there was an article saying that their results were kind of
so
biased.
They weren't banned or completely silenced. There was an article written about it. And where was this article?
No, I think there's like a CNN
Where was this
kind
article?
of like rebuttal to it.
A CNN article.
I can show you, by the way.
Yeah, tell me the name of the CNN article. CNN article. CNN, what's the title of the article?
Hold on. Let me get the website so that I can give you.
I'm eager.
No,
Go on.
Let me just
send us an email.
Yeah, Matt's right. We don't need to waste any more people's time. You sent me an email with the proof that on CNN, a Berkeley professor was silenced and censored.
No. The CNN doesn't say that he was silenced. It says that his results were kind of biased.
Okay, so he wasn't silenced because he got to publish his... Wait, Emmanuel. Was he silenced or did he publish his results and CNN commented on them?
I said,
which one?
He was having like a peer review, and other experts were kind of like reviewing his sort of like claims and stuff, and they said that it was kind of like biased, and he was just like too much political.
It is not silencing someone for them to fail peer review.
Yes, Emmanuel, do you realize what peer review is? Peer review is when someone submits their data to a collection of experts for them to review it. And if something fails peer review, that doesn't mean there's a conspiracy to silence the truth. It means this person failed to establish the truth. And the peer review process is an open one where people get to review that information. So if someone failed peer review, that means their results currently aren't worth paying any fucking attention to. It doesn't mean you get to say, Big Pharma is shutting them down.
I think his name is Tyrone Hayes. I just got...
It doesn't matter. You can email the thing because you've already given away the issue. Here's what I'm going to do. I'm just going to review this call for you, Emmanuel. You have said that Kanye speaks the truth every time he opens his mouth now, except for when he talks about loving Hitler and loving Nazis. You've said that the pharmaceutical companies are evil because they are doing God's will. And now you are saying that a researcher was censored and silenced because he failed peer review. Thank you so much for calling. Jesus Christ. I don't know how to get through to him. Every now and then we take him on a path and he seems to start to almost get it. And then he'll say something like, yes, evolution is a fact, but it disagrees with the Bible, so I still believe it's wrong. He said that almost verbatim before, so I don't know what to do. I left.
There's a Wikipedia page for Tyrone Hayes, who's an American biologist and professor of integrative biology at the University of California, Berkeley. The Wikipedia page literally lists nothing at all about COVID, but does talk about his atrazine research and his advocacy for stuff and the problems with it and the conflict that resulted and data discrepancies and workplace misconduct. So it seems that once again, Emmanuel has grabbed a couple of disparate facts. This is how conspiracy theories work every single time. You take a few disparate facts that aren't connected, and you weave together a compelling narrative and then call it the truth. That's what it is every time. That's what Oliver Stone does in his various non-documentary things, or, one that make it look like Oswald was a patsy and all this other stuff. You take a bunch of facts and you cherry pick them out and weave the best narrative you can for those. So in this case, he thinks he found the professor. Meanwhile, even if there was a wonderful professor who had done good research, it failed peer review, you don't then get to conclude that there's now a conspiracy to silence the truth. It's just not the way this works.
Yeah, I just the sheer amount of, I believe, I'm going to state this as a fact and then tell you the opposite. I only gave 3 examples. He also said vaccines are bad, but basically in every case, they're better than not having them.
Meanwhile, life expectancy has been going up.
Yeah.
Pharmaceutical companies, while they're definitely about profit and there are definitely problems, have made the health status of the modern world the best it's ever been in history.
Yep.
If the Almighty God decided that he wanted to take out a third of the population, why did he wait till 2019 to start doing it? Why didn't he start doing it, I don't know, 100 years earlier when the life expectancy was already half what it was at birth?
Yeah.
Your God's an idiot.
I have huge problems with pharmaceutical companies. Most of them come back to lobbying and the way they lobby to prevent regulations, which would make them fairly price their drugs, especially for uninsured people. So, for example, I've been going through this actual rigmarole with my insurance company, wanting them to cover a specific medication that would be very effective at treating multiple things I deal with. However, because they don't, it is specifically usually a drug for another thing, and they don't want to cover it unless you have that one thing, because they don't want to pay it out. I'm basically screwed, though I'm now working with I should be starting it soon anyway, but through a compounding pharmacy where if you ask, so where did you get the drug since the patent in America is locked up and you can't? And they just go like, don't worry about it. If you test it, it's the drug and that's what it is. So don't worry about it. So that's
Somebody
fun.
in chat pointed out life expectancy in the United States has dropped. Yes. From
in the last few years.
Like 78.79 in 2019.
Yeah.
To 77.2 in 2020.
Yeah. Because of COVID.
It will drop when 1 million fucking people die from a COVID vaccination. But you compare
COVID infection. You said vaccination.
Oh, yes. Sorry, COVID infection. You compare the trend of life expectancy over time, where when you go back to 1960, it was 70. So it's increased then, and you compare it to 100 years ago. But yes, life expectancy has dropped. That is not in any way... The very notion that someone would interpret what I said as concluding that life expectancy always goes up. It's about statistical analysis and the trend, not... It'd be like, 5,000 extra people died today. Let's go and update our life expectancy statistics to adjust for it. That's not what I was saying at all.
Yeah, that is silly.
I was responding to someone who thinks God wants to take out a third of the population.
I actually didn't know it was as high as you just said it was. That I thought average life expectancy was still early 70s. I didn't know it was, what'd you say, 77 point something?
2020 is the last one I've got a number for, which is 77.28 in the U.S. It's 84 in Japan. I mean, we're considerably behind that. It's 80 in the U.K.
Wow.
U.S. isn't number one at anything except stupid news channels.
But I think our numbers are going to be dramatically going up in the next few decades because of those aforementioned drugs. Because we're going to way reduce heart disease, high blood pressure, cholesterol, all of that stuff with these compounds like semaglutide and the like, which is an exciting thing. If the drugs company would stop charging you $1,400 a month if you can't get insurance to cover a compound like semaglutide. Anyway, I think we should probably take John because he's been waiting so long, but then I'm eager to get to Damien's call.
Sure.
Hey, am I on?
John in LA, you're on. Pronouns are he, him. Welcome to the Sunday Show on the line.
Hey, I'm curious, is the line based in Austin?
Kind of.
Yeah, so I'm from New Orleans, so there should probably be not that big of a delay, but there might be a little bit. Just
look
to get that out.
The delay that is
brought up...
The delay
isn't about distance.
Yeah, and it's also not as big a problem as a lot of people like to blame it for. But I will give people that out when they bring it up.
Okay. Yeah, so I wanted to know the best way to argue in defense of age of consent laws from a secular perspective that isn't moralistic.
That isn't
Or
moralistic.
religiously
Why would you? Why would
sorry,
you
that is
narrow?
religiously
Why would?
moralistic.
Why are you talking over me when I'm trying to answer your question? Why does it matter whether it's moralistic?
Sorry, I was just trying to say that isn't religiously moralistic or a secular case in the sense of age of consent laws.
Sure. The quickest thing is to do the research on what happens to children with regard to sex and the impact on it psychologically. If you can watch the recent debate that Michael Jones did with Daniel Hikikachu, he cited a bunch of studies about child marriage because that's what they were debating. You can just go with the science of what actually has an impact on kids. We've learned a lot about the age of consent and its impact. We don't know everything at all, but you don't ever have to appeal to religious morality to make a case for something. You should make the case based on the actual data.
Yeah.
Why though? And I realize I'm stepping into incredibly dangerous ground here. Why are you wanting to have a debate or a discussion with someone about age of consent, and what's their position that you're rejecting?
So usually it would be extremist, libertarians, anarchists, as well as pro-contact. They call them MAPS, or minor attracted person, which is really just a term for pedophile, that do support contact.
Well, yes, it is, but go ahead.
Yeah. So I just mostly to argue against them, who don't necessarily use religious arguments.
So first of all, pedophilia and minor attracted person is a condition that they don't have any control over, and it is irrelevant to the discussion about the age of consent. What person A is attracted to has no bearing on whether or not we should adjust to the age of consent. And people who are attracted to minors shouldn't be disparaged if they're not taking action. Anybody who takes action against a minor should go. I'm still talking. Should go to prison and get help. But we want people who have sexual attractions that are unhealthy and unwise and potentially harmful to be comfortable enough to seek out help. And that's one of the reasons why I try to make a distinction between pedophilia, which is about the desire, and pederasty and child rape and things, which are the actions. And so I wouldn't spend any time, if there's someone who's a pedophile and they're trying to argue that we should. Jesus
This would
Christ.
be people that want to act on their desires. This isn't just people who have that desire, who advocate for acting on it.
John, I'm going to give you a quick thought, and then I think we're going to move on. But I think the thing you're looking for is, if somebody brings that to me, my response is, at present, 18 is a pretty good age of consent, because the data we have and the studies we have indicate that a human by 18 is well over beyond the majority of people who are 18 or older, and actually it's a bit more than the majority, will have all of the mental capacities they need to evaluate the deeper implication, to actually make the choice to consent to sex. And some of the things which are present before that aren't, because you do have a level of actual adulthood and everything. However, it's not a perfect number. There are still people that it would be unethical for somebody who is an adult to fuck well into that person's 20s because of their mental limitations, as well as, and then there are, basically both sides. So 18 is sort of a number that is one of the numbers that have come out of society over the last couple of centuries. It works pretty good, but it's not perfect, as we can see, because we've also restricted the age of consenting to other things, not 18. We've made it over 18. We have a 21 age of consent to purchase alcohol and stuff like that in America.
Right. So I agree with you. I'm pro age of consent. To clarify, this would be people who would argue that there should be no or very low age of consent.
And I was explaining to you why that's wrong, because prior to 18, you are more likely to not have the cognitive faculties to evaluate the actual weight of that decision.
I explained to you the argument that they use when I've talked to them and debated them is that we let kids do other harmful things, like, say, football, that could be potentially risky.
We probably should limit more things about football, but that's hardly the same thing. Whether kids are playing games in football, just to say there is some risk doesn't make all risks equal. and the long-term implications of sexual abuse of a minor imposed upon them as from adults is not the same as the long-term implications of the harm of football. You might get a bad knee for the rest of your life
if you keep playing, but also football and other sports that people can participate in have healthy benefits as well, and other positive or neutral things. Meanwhile, you don't have to be a certain age to own a BB gun, but you may have to be a certain age to own an actual firearm, because the relative risk of those two is different. And similarly, kids can participate in something that may have some risk, like football, and maybe, as Jimmy said, we should change the way that works and what we're going to grant, but you don't get to let anybody just engage in a slippery slope fallacy. I can't believe anybody needs this explained to them, that there are different risks in different things, and that the massive amount of information that we've learned about the psychology of sex, and particularly sex between adults and minors, which unfortunately, it's a shame that we even have the fucking data, but at least we do. And if someone wants to suggest that letting a kid play peewee football is somewhere in the ballpark of the same risk of allowing them to be raped by an adult, they are not deserving of a debate or conversation. They need their browser history checked.
Yes, this was kind of after the reason why I got interested in debating this topic with, again, mostly people that would be on the extreme libertarian side, was
I don't care.
There's a professor at SUNY. There's a professor at SUNY Fredonia named Stephen Kirshner, I think, who said that he doesn't believe there should be sexual age of consent laws, at least not the way we have them now.
John, I'm just going to cut you off
and I don't care.
Yeah, I'm also at a point of not caring generally. John, here's the thing: have them call us. That would be great. We'll argue with the actual people advocating for the position.
I'm done arguing by proxy. That's not my job.
Exactly. Yeah. I'm not mad at you, John. I know that you're just trying to be equipped with better things. You need to maybe learn to wait till people finish talking to respond, because you did it to both of us. But other than that, the most useful thing would be to get us actually a person with the positions to debate, because I feel like there's also it's not been effective you trying to represent them.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks, John.
Thanks. Bye.
Sorry, that probably wasn't the great call John was expecting, wasn't hoping for. It happens. We still have lines available for theists. Theists, we'd love to talk to you about your belief in God, your beliefs in spirituality, your beliefs in anything you might call a religious belief, and how you defend it. Atheists, if you believe in wooey stuff, you believe in ghosts, you believe in anything that's supernatural, but just not a God, I'd still love to talk to you too. Give us a call. Like I said, we don't have a hard stop today, so we have a little bit of room if you want to take us over time. But in the meantime, I think, did we agree we're doing Damien next?
Yep. You ready?
You have a preference? Yeah, I'm ready.
Damien from Toronto, you're on the line. Welcome to the Sunday Show.
Okay, first of all, Matt, I've been a huge fan, right? Okay, since long and time. Jimmy,
sucks.
You're good too, man. Okay.
Oh, thanks.
So
man.
let's just get straight to it. All
sure,
right.
Thanks, Damien. Go ahead.
So, is it okay? I've lived my life now. I'm 46. Okay. I remember when I was a little boy. I was 10 months old. Okay. It was Halloween. I was born in the first month. If you do the math, it matches. Because there was a little kid, and he had a mask on, and he was in the back of my mother. So my mother had me, and my head was on her shoulder, and my freaking eyes were facing her back. And the kid was in the back, and he was like, the kid had a mask on, and he's like going left and right. And in that time, in that moment, in my mind, I said that I am alive. Okay, so I was up. I was awake on this earth. Okay, now I'm sounding crazy and I fucking get it. Okay?
I don't even understand what you're saying.
Yeah, I mean...
You don't really though, Matt? Really, guy? I'm 10 months old, Matt. My mother is holding me on her shoulder and I'm facing her back. Okay? There's a kid in the back with a mask on and he's going left and right like he's trying to scare the kid. Me, right? But in that time, at that moment, I was on this earth. So I focused, like I zoomed in. Okay, at 10 months old. Now, I don't know the science, if that could even, I have no idea. I never looked into it because I don't give a shit. Okay, even though I wanted to. So,
Damien, what you're saying is, even if your story is true, which we have no reason to believe it is.
Okay, yes.
Wait a second, Damien, Damien.
I get it.
Damien,
why?
Stop talking over me.
I'm going to fix this by muting your ass, and you get to talk again when we decide.
Yeah, Damien, you have to wait. I'll unmute on my end and leave the mute option on your end. Okay. You have to wait until, if we start talking, all we're asking is you wait for us to finish talking. Don't start talking over us. Just keep it polite. I'm fine having this conversation. I'm fine talking to you about this stuff. I wasn't even going to go the direction you thought I was going to go, which is why it annoys me that you started talking over me. Because you're going with the, I know it sounds crazy. I know it sounds... I was going to go with the direction is you're describing a metaphysical thing, and yet you've already said that you don't know the science, you haven't looked into it, you haven't researched it. So even if, let's say the story is true for just this moment and the sake of argument, you don't even know whether or not there are exceptions where a 10-month-old sometimes develops memory and basic language skills. You haven't actually even demonstrated something that has to be a metaphysical claim. Now you can go.
I get it, right? I was quiet that whole time. I get it. Okay,
Great.
Sure. So let's keep going then. So that was when I was young, okay? I was 10 months old.
No,
so let's keep going.
No,
grade 4,
no,
grade 5. Sorry, okay, go ahead.
No, sir,
yeah.
it wasn't when you were young. So how do you tell the difference between you now having an accurate memory of you at 10 months versus you thinking you have an accurate memory of you at 10 months, but being mistaken? How do you tell the difference?
It's when I had my daughter at 23.
Okay.
I met my kid's mom.
Listen. No, stop.
You have to listen, Matt.
You shut the fuck up and listen. What you said is not in any way an answer to the question I just asked you. How can you tell if the memory that you have now is accurate to be when you were 10 months old, or is inaccurate, a fictional memory that you just think is about you when you were 10? How do you tell the difference? That was my question. It has nothing to do with the birth of your daughter.
It's because I have never left that moment. I've never forgot it.
Bullshit.
Okay, see? Okay.
I don't even know what that means. You've never forgot it.
Okay.
So wait, Damien, when's the first time you remembered it?
At that moment.
When's the second time you remembered it?
Okay.
Years later.
And how many years later was it?
When I had the second dream.
How many years later was it?
Whoa,
I'm looking for a number.
Probably 8. Not yet.
Let me get my number.
8 years.
Okay, so how did you confirm that the second time you remembered, years later, at 8 years old, when you remember having the memory the first time, that the thing you were remembering was in fact you at 10 months old and not a fabrication of your mind?
I don't know that, but
correct.
I know that that's what happened. Yes, I get it.
True.
I get it.
At 8 years old, you had the experience.
Shut the fuck up. You'd have gotten there a whole lot quicker.
So much faster. At 8 years old, you had the experience of a memory, and you decided it was in fact a memory and not a fabrication based on all of the data you intake. By the way, Damien, I have a memory like this that I have let go. My brain thinks I remember, wait a minute. My brain thinks that I remember when I moved from a crib to a mattress. And I've told this story before and found out after it's impossible when it would have had to have happened. And I remember, by the way, Damien, here's my proof it's a real memory. I do have proof that the mattress I remember with race cars was in fact my mattress later. So which one's more likely, that that memory is true, or the fact that I then continue to have that mattress till well into my younger years, like until I was 6 or 7, that I created the memory with existing data and a basic understanding that people of who the characters in the story are, what house we lived in, because it was still the same house, that I created a memory out of elements that are genuine, but the memory itself isn't true. Which one do you think's more likely there?
I get it, right? Yours, I get it, right?
Why don't you, with that exact example, why does it make sense to you?
I should have never started.
Go ahead, Damien. You should have never started with what?
Oh, sorry. Yes. I should never have started there. I should have started with my daughter. And then we could move back, because that is where I have the proof, right? Because you said you need the proof to do it, right? Because it's not a memory, right?
Okay, wait a second and let Matt talk.
Pause. Daniel, I agree with you that you should have never started there, but here's the reason. I'm going to mute you again for the 4th time. I agree that you should have never started there. I'm going to unmute you in a moment, because it says here you have premonitions and you think you can see the future. And yet we spent all this time talking about whether or not you have memories from when you were 10 months old. Let me just, for the sake of argument, say, yes, in fact, you do have memories from when you were 10 months old, and they're completely accurate. The first question I'm going to ask you is, what does you having accurate memories of when you were 10 years old, how does that in any way demonstrate, how is that relevant at all to whether or not you can see the future?
Sorry, the, beep there, and I didn't get your last part there. Like it beeped, and then I don't know what the hell happened there.
Let's assume, for the sake of argument, that you have accurate memories from when you were 10 years old. How is that relevant to whether or not you can see the future?
Okay, it's not, right? Because that right there was the start.
No, all right, now I'm muting you again. This is why I agree with you. You shouldn't have brought it up. I don't necessarily believe that you have any way of showing that your memories of being 10 months old are in fact accurate. But even if you did, it would be completely irrelevant. So let's start over. Damien from Toronto, pronouns are he, him. We're not even going to care about whether or not he has memories from 10 years old, but Damien is convinced that he has premonitions and sees the future. Damien, welcome to the Sunday Show on the Line. Please tell us what's going on.
Okay. Sorry, the ambulance or something like that. Okay. When somebody has a kid, they go and grab a book. So the mother and the father go grab a book, and they guess the sex of the child, right? I did that with my child's mom. She guessed a boy. I knew it was going to be a girl. I knew it was going to be a girl with brown curly hair, brown eyes, light, skin, and she's going to look like me more than you. That's what I said in the book. Come, to find out, I'm 100% correct. I have that book.
Wow, out of 50-50, you got the right gender, and you guessed that the mitochondrial DNA would have a significant effect on the appearance of your child.
White and black?
Hang on.
White and black?
What? Hang on. Do you know what the fuck hang on means?
I hung on.
No, you didn't. Stop talking. I have a question, and then you can answer it. At the end of what you just said, you said, I still have the book. Why is the book relevant to this?
Wouldn't the book be proof?
What is the book proof of?
The proof of that I seen my daughter when I was a child so now I see my daughter in a dream when I was in grade 4. And I seen my kid's mom in grade 5 in a dream. And when I seen my kid's mom at the club, I was sitting down and she came and I looked up and I was like, holy shit. And she started laughing and I said, listen, this is going to sound nuts, but you will have my daughter. And she's like, no way. I was like, I'm serious. You're going to have my daughter. And she got pregnant and she had my daughter. The only kid that I have.
It's a great story about it. It's a great story about a pickup line.
I know, it's a great story.
It's a great story about a pickup line, but how is it proof?
Okay, sure.
Okay. Interrupt me one more fucking time, I dare you. How is that proof that you actually see the future? What book is it, by the way? Because you made it sound like when people get pregnant, they go and grab a book. I don't know of anybody who, when they get pregnant, go and grab a book. So I don't know what book you're talking about.
Okay. You get a book, and then you pick, names of like kids and stuff. Like it's not like any book, placemat. If you had a kid, I'm pretty sure you would go figure there, and then go pick a book, and you guys would guess the sex, guess the, pick friggin' boys and girls' names. You guess the sex of the child. There's a book. I'm telling you, there's a book. I'm not. This is
What is
real.
The title of the book?
Like, come on,
what is the title of the book?
I don't know. I'd have to go find the book.
So
I'm at home.
It's a book that contains.
No.
Sorry.
Damien,
I'm not talking shit. There's a book. Fuck.
Does the book? Oh, shut the fuck up, Damien. The book that you're talking about. How does it prove that you saw your future child ahead of time? How does that book prove that?
That's the only proof that I have.
That is not an answer to my question, Damien. How does that
it
book
prove that I see the future?
Is it like a baby name book?
Yes, yeah.
Cool. How does that baby name book in any way prove that you had a premonition about your daughter? Is anything about your daughter in that book?
Yes. You write in the book, you're guessing the eye color, the hair.
My God.
Like there's blanks to it.
This is literally too stupid to waste any more time on it. Congratulations on guessing a 50-50 thing on the sex of your child. I don't know why you think that proves that you have any ability to do a premonition about anything. Do you think that you can control these premonitions? Like, what other sort of predictions do you get? What can you do that we can test?
I do not think that we have a choice in life. I think it is written.
I didn't.
There's no.
All right, I'm going to mute your ass again. I didn't ask you anything at all about whether or not you think we have a choice in life. I asked you very specifically, can we test this? Do you have a way of demonstrating a premonition that we can test? Because your laughably ridiculous premonition about your child is irrelevant. I want to know if we can test this to determine if you have this ability or if you just got lucky. I didn't ask you anything at all about whether or not we have a choice. So how could we test whether or not you accurately receive premonitions?
I guess you would have to be around, me to, do it, right? To test.
Well, then
right?
I'll never know, because there's no way in hell I'm going to spend any time around you. Goodbye, Damien. Thanks so much for calling.
It's tough because on the one hand, we never got to a useful conversation of, if he had called in with a different attitude of going, I want to observe this and see how you would have dismissed it. And we've had those calls. It would have been a completely different call. And go like, these are the questions, these are the things. And when you have people who call in honestly, they're often like, oh yeah, okay, that makes sense. But you just, I get what you're saying. This was just a call of, just a person bragging about 2 50-50 chances. I got the gender right, and I got the, or rather sex right, and there's only 2 choices. If you're saying a kid, we're going to have a kid, me and this person. The kid will either look more like me or more like that person. Technically, you could say that's true whether genetics was true or not. And then you weighed the difference between the types of DNA contributions. But let's just say it was just fully that. It's only a 50-50 chance. So you got 2 50-50s in a row correct. Well done. I'm working on a poll that will prove that some percentage of our audience is also clairvoyant.
Yeah. Meanwhile, you're talking about phenotypically dominant and incomplete dominant traits. It's not like you predicted an albino redhead child where you're trying to get 2 recessive traits going. As someone who actually breeds animal and knows a little bit about genetics, let me say that your coin toss prediction on the sex of your child and your coin toss prediction on which one of the 2 of you it most looked like is wholly unimpressive. And if that's the entirety of the extent of your ability to predict things, I remain unplussed. Meanwhile, when I ask you if there's some way to test it, and your response is, I guess you'd have to be around me, you have no zero, not the slightest hint of comprehension of what it means to test something, which is why you stupidly believe that you have an ability, because you don't know the first thing about testing it. And you know what? Plenty of other people have gotten that wrong too. Doing something stupid, reaching a bad conclusion, doesn't mean that you're stupid. It doesn't mean that you can't learn. You know what does prevent you from learning? Coming in so cocksure and then talking over the very people who can help you gain an understanding of how you can test something. I'm not the best in the world at establishing test protocols, but as a skeptic and a magician, and having investigated many claims about people saying that they can do paranormal things, and being associated with people who have tested claims, including James Randi from The Amazing Randi and the JREF Challenge, I know at least a little bit that could have helped you get to, here's how we test this. But you're not interested in that. You are so absolutely cocksure that you have memories going back to when you were 10 months old, and that makes you special. And so when you have a dream about a baby and you meet a woman and you're like, you're going to have my daughter, ha, ha, ha. And then she winds up having your daughter. Oh, my goodness. Well, congratulations on finding someone just as gullible as you to marry.
All right, Matt, I'm sure you've got a deck of cards within hand's reach, right? Usually.
Yeah, it's not a complete deck right now, but yeah.
That's fine. Here's what I've done. I have asked my phone to flip 2 coins. Tails I'm representing with queens, and heads with kings. It already did it. I already know what the results are. I have the 2 cards. The card I have on top, as in not against the table, is the first coin, and then the second coin is the card I have on bottom. If you will just choose what you think the order is, I already did that too. I made my prediction, and I have that as 2 others. So first card would be heads or tails, heads or tails. And now, if you are in the chat, I'm going to give you until the clock says 55 to finish and also answer. Is it heads, 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 tails, tails, heads, tails, tails? Those are your options. And I'm going to give them, I'm just giving them a few more moments. And then I want to find out how many people between Matt and I and our audience have proof that they are clairvoyant and could know this information that's impossible to know otherwise. Wow.
Now, I'm holding on to these because I didn't even pay all that much attention. I have no idea what order these are in and whether I think it's heads, tails, 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 heads, heads, or tails, tails. I just picked 2 cards from the selected choices you did, and I have them in a certain order, and I'm basically willing to roll the dice because I have nothing. I mean, sitting around thinking about it wouldn't have given me any more likelihood of getting it right.
Yeah.
But I've actually, the only thing I did do specifically was pick the suits to see if I can predict the suits of the 2 cards that you're holding.
Oh, interesting. No, that one, you can, I think. Okay, so I have the suits. Are you predicting the suits that I used? Because I think that there's
those 2 cards right there. I'm trying to see if I can also match the suits of the cards you picked.
Do you want the suits of the cards I picked or the suits of the coin tosses?
The 2 cards. The result coin toss will be 2 cards.
Yes.
And that means that there will be 1 or 2 suits. And I'm going to turn mine around and you're going to turn yours around. And we'll see how closely they match, including down to the suit. I'm trying to do a little bit more because if I get it right, like if I flip this around and it matches to the suit, both of your cards, I got a miracle that makes, Damien's thing look just absolutely trivial.
So let me just say I had predicted, but this isn't related to what Matt just said. I predicted both being heads, and that's what I have my 2 kings to show that's what I was predicting. But the actual coin toss, so this will be the equivalent to the card that is closest to the camera, the one behind the other one from your perspective. The first coin toss was tails, and the second one was heads.
See, I didn't get it right at all, but I did do that. It's a king and a queen.
However, I also didn't get it right. 26% of our audience who answered the poll has now proof that they have a supernatural ability to predict the outcome of not one, but 2 coin tosses in a row. So to everybody who said tails, heads, you're magical, according to our last caller, because that is the same odds, 2 50-50 options in a row, that the caller was able to tell us he did. We don't actually have proof he did, but tell us he did.
I'm actually really glad that I got both of them wrong, because if I would have gotten both of them right, I'd be answering emails for ages about, did you and Jimmy set that up? Was that whole thing faked? And yes, we arranged to have someone call in with those exact odds. And I'm glad I got them wrong.
We've done a couple of things over the years like this. Do you remember the guy who called in who said, I can ask God a question and he'll always answer? And I said, fine, then tell me the coin. And we did coin tosses. And the first one he got wrong and he went, okay, you're right. I'm wrong. I thought I did, but I didn't. This is on that level of, this is like the most fun thing for me when we occasionally get to do things like this.
I'm going to do a test.
Okay.
And this might not succeed. But it's, in a way, this is something that I learned from Teller. So I'm just going to hold this card, do nothing else. Jimmy, name the card.
Queen of Hearts.
Damn it. Nah. I tried to give you a hint by saying I learned it from Teller, but.
Oh, I don't know if I've seen it. Queen of Hearts, if you ask a person to think of a card, is the most.
Yes, I know that.
That's the most common. Then what is it? Ace of Spades after that?
Ace of Spades, Queen of Hearts. Those are the most common. So Penn and Teller use the 3 of clubs for every card force pretty much every card force that they do. And so it's just become that's their card. Now it's like, maybe I can get it.
I didn't know that. The 7 of clubs legitimately is it's either my marker. I use the 7 of clubs when I need a card.
The third one. That's the third. I think it goes Ace of Spades, Queen of Hearts, 7 of clubs, I think is the order.
I had no idea.
Psychological force.
That makes an event in my life now less magical. Because if you remember the producer, David, who used to work here, he and I used to hide 7 of clubs for each other to find.
We talked about this.
Yeah. And then there was an episode of The Simpsons where Marge leaves and Homer has to make the lunches. And Lisa says, like, I got some drywall, or I got a puzzle. What did you get? And Bart pulls out and he goes, a 7 of clubs? And Homer's walking by and goes, ta-da! And it was the most surreal moment ever. So awesome. And now it's less magical if the 7 of clubs is the third most most requested. Anyway, yes, go on.
I think we talked about that last time too. But we have Secular Doominist, him from California, with something for Jimmy. So welcome to the show, and I will let Jimmy take over.
Hey guys, thank you. That was hilarious. I'm kind of dying right now laughing, but
thank you.
So first of all, I'm really sorry about Andy. I know what it's like to lose someone like that.
Thanks so much.
It's hard, and
thank you.
And he did his he did such a great thing. It's a small pool that you guys have, but he must have contributed a lot, and I love that he was there for that. So he's got that, right? So anyway, so I just want to circle back to something that someone that Jimmy was talking to, and it kind of melted my face off, because the free will thing, I've never fully embraced free will, because I'm like, well, what does this quadriplegic do? They can't stand up. There's no free will there. But I always thought that I was in total control of my thoughts and how I process, the world around me, and how I could compute with my language and my mind. And then Jimmy said something to this caller. I was at work. It just kind of stopped me. And he was like, well, where did you get the language or the words to process how you're thinking about things? And so it kind of turned my meat prison into maximum security, where I'm not free to, I don't have an unlimited intellectual resource to process the world. And I just want to make sure that I understood that correctly.
Yeah, real quick, Doom. I hope I can call you Doom for short.
Sure.
The example I gave was a little bit more specific, though I don't remember what the person said, but it was basically just a demonstration to help undermine people's insistence that they have control over this. And basically, I just gave the example of when you're speaking a sentence, how do you decide what words to say? And most people will say,
I'm so glad you remember.
Most people will say right before I say the word, and sometimes it's so low latency, it seems instantaneous. I'm thinking those words in my mind. So in my mind, I'm choosing the words and then I'm saying. And so then the question is, okay, so now you have not the words you said out loud, but you have the words you thought in your mind before you said them out loud. How did you conjure those words? And that's where most people go, I don't know. I don't know how I conjured those words. And that's the sort of thing is they come from somewhere. Your brain is firing neurons. You're accessing the language that you've learned. Your brain has done natural processes, and they're coming from somewhere. And so unless you can then do another process where you always, every step past, are choosing and selecting the words you're going to go with that then eventually leads to language, even though it'd be an infinite process, you at some point, your brain is doing a function that you aren't making choices to do. It's just being a brain. I don't think it undermines, though, anything about the experience of reality, the experience of making choices, the experience of having thoughts and having feelings. I don't think it makes the world any less magical. Either we have free will or we don't, but if we don't, it would appear free will is an illusion, and it doesn't seem, or that we experience it like an illusion. And realistically, to my personal experience, I'm still going to fall in love, I hope, ever again. I'm still going to enjoy sex, I hope, ever again. I'm still going to have an experience of life that is full of satisfaction. But even that satisfaction isn't a choice. It's a result of chemicals in my brain that either something I do is giving me that sense of satisfaction or it doesn't. And that's it. So if you're experiencing existential dread over it, I really hope you stop, because life's awesome and you still get to do things you like to do.
Wow. Thank you. That clarifies a lot. And I want you to know, I want you to hear these words because I really mean them, Jimmy. Go fuck yourself.
Thanks, buddy. I was worried you were going to really compliment me. Thank you, Doom.
No. It's fine. And Matt, you've changed a lot of lives, and I've watched you for a long time, and you guys are fucking amazing. And thank you for everything you do. And peace from Oakland, California.
Thanks very much.
Awesome. Thanks, Doom.
Thank you. Okay. Bye.
I love atheist calls that are quick and effective. That one was that. I'm glad when we get some clarity on something. It runs the risk of being like, oh well, you guys just you don't actually want to be challenged on something. We just he asked you a question, then you explained, and it was over. And I'm like, yes, yeah,
that's how conversations go when there seems to be a compelling reason to believe that there is a right answer and you have awareness of that right answer.
Yeah.
Does not mean that every conversation is going to go that way.
Exactly. Yeah. I appreciated the opportunity in case if my words caused him to experience some sort of cynical nihilistic dread, that means he probably wasn't the only one. So I'm happy to have had the opportunity to put on the record that none of this should take your enjoyment and hope out of life, even if you think that it's probably true, as I do. Yeah. Well, cool. On to the next atheist. We have plenty of if you call in before these last atheist calls run out, I'll stick around at minimum, and I think Matt would too. Be happy to take more theist calls, because so far today we've had a theist who was deconstructing and figuring it out, and that was good. Then we had two not so confident at, I would love to get a good defender, a person with actually compelling defenses, because I feel that most theists would have been embarrassed by the two defenders that showed up today.
Yeah, but, I mean, it's funny. I can get debate opponents and we can discuss stuff. It's very frustrating when people won't call in because they're afraid of incredibly simple questions.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, totally agree.
So Con in Ooh, is that Wisconsin?
I don't know what
It's Washington.
Washington.
Washington
Yeah.
State.
Every now and then my postal code 2-letter abbreviations, my brain just stops working. But anyway, Con, pronouns are he, him, has a question about anti-theism. So welcome. You're on the Sunday Show on the line.
Thanks. Yeah, this is awesome. Well, first I'll just say, big fan. I like both of you guys. But yeah, so I'm an atheist and an anti-theist. And, so I mean, like, opposition to the belief in God. Like, I believe it was a Christopher Hitchens quote that, I'm not so much an atheist as I am an anti-theist. I not only maintain that all religions are different versions of the same untruth, but that these beliefs are fundamentally harmful. And so I just wanted to see where you guys stood on that, what you guys think about that.
I have strong thoughts on this, so I'll let you go first.
I don't use that as my when I use the word anti-theism, that's not what I mean by it. So, yeah,
what do you mean by it?
I mean actual opposition to theism, where kind of I use anti-theism as co-equal to strong atheism.
Okay, yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, no, I hear a lot of people do that. But I guess I guess that's just not how, different people just familiar with different terms in different ways. So
yeah,
the way I'm familiar with it is opposition to theism. Yeah, sorry.
I use it closer to your term than Matt's as well. However, the thing that when I say I have strong thoughts about it, I have strong exasperation with a redefining of it lately to where lots of people have used the word anti-theist and then many theists, and oddly, this has come out of a lot of pagan communities that used to be seemingly more allied with the secular humanist communities, but they've decided they get to define what that term people were using. And then with their new definition, which basically just means automatically bigoted toward any person who is seeing a person as actually lesser as a theist, or instantly drawing dramatic conclusions about all theists in totality. Now anybody who is still using that label or used it in the past, they get to reassign that that's also the definition those people are using. So this is where those strong thoughts come from, because if anything, I avoid the term because now the term is being abused and I don't feel as attached to it as I do atheist, which is a term I feel like representing and trying to destigmatize as people are trying to stigmatize anti-theism now, it would seem.
Yeah, no, people do that a lot. I think right-wingers did that with libertarians, so it's kind of a weird thing.
Well, libertarians aren't tremendous either, even without the right-wing influence. I mean, small L libertarianism is fine. I'm a small L libertarian socialist myself.
Yeah, me too. Yeah, I guess I just think that it's to believe something without any good evidence, I think is sort of risky in the sense that then anything can really be accepted without any good evidence. And if you can just assert something and it has to be respected without any evidence, then we get into an iffy territory where you could just assert anything. And
this is a different anti-theism isn't necessarily a commentary on whether or not you think beliefs for being beliefs should be respected. Whether Matt or I are anti-theists, I think we both don't think that just because you can hold a belief means we have to respect. I don't think you have to respect on the surface any belief. Any belief that is respectable needs to be able to meet some burden of scrutiny.
Yeah, no, I agree. Yeah, no, I think that it's fundamentally harmful, I guess, that it kind of degrades critical thinking and it encourages kind of going against that and stuff. I think that, it's done a lot of harm. Religion in general has done a lot of harm. And, I guess that which can be asserted without evidence can be dismissed without evidence and ought to be, in my opinion. Yeah.
We're going to let you go, I guess.
Yeah,
go ahead.
I'm just saying, I just did a video yesterday that's going to be released in the next few days, reviewing a debate between Aron and T-Jump at DebateCon, where the question was, does religion do more harm than good? I have a number of problems with that topic, but you've launched into one of my main problems with this, is that I don't think you can speak about religion broadly, because religion would include secular humanism, Satanism, Christianity, Buddhism, all the and you shouldn't judge them all by the baggage of the worst or the best of them, and so each of them need to be considered separately. Anti-theism, the way that I use the word as in the strong atheistic position, it goes beyond just strong atheism, the assertion that there is no God. It is a direct opposition to theism, not to religion, because theism and religion are not co-equal. And so I have a problem with theism for the reasons you're talking about, because I find that it conflicts with proper critical thinking, skepticism, the nature of evidence, and that stuff like that. But I would have to admit that it is possible to hold a theistic position and not be engaging in the more harm than good consequences of many packaged religions and things like that. So I think it's just a little more complicated like that. And I don't care for or about the labels. So when somebody's like, what do you think about anti-theism? Well, now I have to go through and define how I use the term, what I think about it, and then how other people use the term and what I think about it. When really the question we should be asking is the one that is there any good reason to hold a theistic position, and how much harm does holding a theistic position actually entail?
Matt, I wonder what your thoughts are on that, because I would love a word that an anti-theist comes closest
in edgewise
that is descriptive. No, that is descriptive of my position. So if I were to say my position is, I am greatly motivated, and would even consider it a type of activism, to disillusion people of their notions of theism unless they can demonstrate that their theism has some sort of sufficient basis. And anti-theist sounds like that descriptive word to me, except for that other people have abused the word in a lot of ways, or even there are versions of it that aren't abusive. Well, I was wondering if you feel a notion, or feel also a desire to have a word that goes in with that description, or if you can think of one already that does.
I think that's close to the way I would use anti-theism anyway. I think the distinction comes between anti-theism and anti-religion in that sense, but
yeah,
and I'm anti-religion too.
Yeah, but well, I already went on my soapbox about feeling almost betrayed by a community that I used to ally with and do. I mean, they were a big part of the pumpkin saga and everything else. For them to rewrite that term and then start projecting it on me and other people around us was frustrating. Anything else before we let you go, Con?
No, well, I guess I would just you said you were a socialist or whatever, so I would just recommend looking into Pierre Joseph Proudhon. He was an early socialist libertarian, if you're ever interested in that. He influenced a lot of my ideas, but that's just completely different. But yeah, it's been great. I love both you guys, and keep up the good work, you know?
Thank you, Con.
Yeah. Yep. Peace.
So somebody in chat said the word is skeptic, and I know the word is not skeptic.
Correct.
Skepticism is about wanting to believe as many true things and as few false things as possible. It's about using the most reliable methods. It is not about particular conclusions. If you were to say that skepticism is the word for being opposed to theism or religion, that's just wrong.
Yeah. And it's definitely not for if you were trying to define what I was saying I wanted a word for, I specifically said I am motivated to disillusion people of a specific conclusion. That is also not skepticism. How I got to the conclusion of theirs being false is skepticism. However, that's the utility, not the conclusion itself. Yeah.
Some people are saying that the bird is the word, but I would say the word is up. That's the code word. Patrick in Texas, Bronzer I apologize. I don't know. I'm gonna try to address your question, but I'd like for you to state it, and then I'll explain why I will or won't talk about that. So, welcome to the Sunday Show on the line, Patrick.
Okay, thanks. Can you hear me okay?
Yep, just fine. Go on.
Yep.
Okay. I'm just going to throw some ideas out there. A lot of people in my life are Christian. For me, I end up having to hold my tongue sometimes or be really brash. But the people that I really care about, I don't nag or harp on how their beliefs are crazy or anything like that. So for you, Matt, since your brother's your better half, do you ever have instances with him where he strikes your logic or you have to hold your tongue? Or have you and him parsed out y'all's beliefs so deeply that it doesn't cause any conflict or anything like that with you two? How do you handle that?
So, without getting into specifics, our differences in beliefs don't impact our relationship in any negative or significant sense, because he's my favorite person, and we talk and are open, and we love and are proud of each other. And in some cases, we're going to get closer and closer to agreement. And in some cases, it just doesn't matter.
Yeah, I don't talk about it much, but I have a sister who's a believer, and I have the same relation. I would say the same thing as Brad. We're not each other's favorite people, but we like each other plenty. But I also have several siblings for whom it's the opposite, who it does get in the way. It's the difference in our beliefs are why we can't. And so that sister is some form of Mormonism that if I were to just directly say it to her face, it'd be like, in any other era up to now, you would have been excommunicated also because you're such a goddamn hippie. But, you live in the modern where they can't afford to hemorrhage any members, so they're going to pretend that there's a space there for you. But I have other siblings with whom there just isn't. You can't always make it work with people when the beliefs are that extremely different, including when they are defending on the basis of their belief their past and their past abuses of you and their desire to continue to abuse you in those ways.
Yeah, well, and true. I mean, but you also, you really can't decide that somebody else is going to be a Christian. You may really like them, and they just happen to be Christian, and then I guess you're left with the divisiveness, or it may just never get brought up. But that was really just all I was wanting to ask. The people that are really close to you, that you deeply love, but they just happen to believe in, I guess, God, and how it's a pretty wacky belief in itself. A lot of stuff was just mentioned in that previous call, but that doesn't affect you in any way, Matt, with your brother at all, with morality or any, I guess, political view in any sense?
No, we tend to agree on most of that, or what we disagree on hasn't been an issue.
Does that happen to be more, is it more cohesive with y'all because of the type of Christian that he is?
I don't know what type of Christian he is. I don't know that he's necessarily a Christian. I don't know that any of that's relevant. The relevant portion is that my brother and I love each other and agree on important things and don't let disagreements on little things get in the way.
But it's a big deal for people who are, I don't know. It's a big deal being that...
If you'd asked about my dad or my mom,
yes,
that's very different.
Yep. And for you, what way is it different, seeing that y'all have had such...
My parents are batshit crazy fundamentalists.
How did your brother not end up on the spectrum of...
How did I not end up? Same way I did.
Patrick, is it that you have a sibling in your life that you're trying to evaluate whether or not you're going to be able to keep the style of relationship in your life, or is it just or is this more of a from the outside? I just can't imagine how you make this work. What is it?
Yeah. For Matt specifically, yeah. I don't have.
Why are you worried? No, stop. Why are you worried about me specifically?
Because you're so strident on people who are not close to you.
Strident on people who are not close. I don't know what that means. Every relationship's going to be different. Every relationship's going to be different. My brother and I get along. It's not relevant to any of this stuff.
But there's no secret sauce to that. There's no key ingredient that.
Yes, Patrick. There's a secret sauce to get along with siblings that I've been hiding for years. It's called love, respect, empathy. My brother's one of the best people I've ever met in my life. That's it.
I'll throw honesty in there too. I don't have time for members of my family who start being dishonest to my face. I've given up trying to have any conversations with them.
I almost didn't take this call at all because I don't get to speak for my brother, which is why I'm not here to talk about what type of Christian he is or isn't or any of those things. I don't get to speak for him, and I wouldn't insult him by doing it. And he's not here to defend himself. And I don't understand why my relationship with my brother, beyond saying he's my favorite person and we respect and love each other and we get along, the details are none of your damn business.
Yeah.
Not to slight you, but that's why I almost didn't take the call. This is simple. There's no secret sauce. We love each other. That's it.
Well, for lack of a better example, pretty much somebody you really care about that's close to you that has a different belief.
How do you know that he has a different view at all and what that view is?
I don't. But basing it off
you don't. You made assumptions. Yeah. You made assumptions and started prying into my personal relationship, which I've given you more information than I cared to. Is there anything else I can help you with?
Well, Patrick, I actually want to ask you a question because I think you've made some assumptions here. I'm a little bit probably defensive because Matt's also my friend, and I'm realizing that I think you might be being kind of fucking shitty here, man. Is it that is your assumption that because Matt has, let's call them enthusiastic arguments with theists on this program, that resembles how he would treat that person just on a regular casual day-to-day, like wouldn't go to lunch with Emmanuel or wouldn't otherwise be able to enjoy those people's company? Don't get me wrong, when the ridiculous bigots call in, I'd also not. But what is it you think that Matt's relationship with these, because you said based on how strident he is, are you calling in saying my expectation of Matt is that all these people that he has arguments with, he wouldn't have a relationship with, he wouldn't be friends with, and that's shown in how strident he is in his argument. And so how does he have a relationship in his life with people that, according to my conclusions, he wouldn't be able to have a relationship with if they were just a random person other than his family? It kind of feels like you're saying that. Is that what you're trying to get to?
Not necessarily. I don't want to get too personal on who his brother is. I just know his brother's a Christian, and I find it.
Do you?
Yeah, I've heard you say he's a Christian, but
you've heard me say that I was a Christian. Maybe he is. Maybe he's not. Maybe he still is. Maybe he's some variety. Not everybody that gets a Christian label stays there, and not everybody gets a Christian label stays the same. That's the point. My brother is not here, and he's not relevant. I told you how and why we get along. What else do you need to know?
Okay. Well, with people who are not your brother, does them not being a theist affect you with how you would view them, even if you really like them?
Jimmy's not a theist.
Oh, sorry. If they were theists, I apologize. If they were theists.
I have friends and family members who are theists. I have friends and family members who are theistic that I get along with fine. What matters isn't whether or not they're convinced there's a God, but what they think and do about it. I'm trying to figure out what's the point of this call, because it just feels a lot like, gosh, I'm confused about how you can possibly get along with people in your family.
Not confused, just interested on how you make that work for you.
Yeah, I opened up my life way more than anybody else that you're going to talk to at this level. And now I've repeatedly said where I'm going to draw a line to continue talking. So do you have something that's not going to cross that line?
If you allow me to ask another question, yes.
Go for it.
This is something that you've said that I don't know if you'd want to parse on it more. The contradictions with Christians and that they have they're stealth secularists with the morality that they adhere to, and they sacrifice traditional values, and that you don't have to be, you don't have to have a declaration of divine edict to know that something is moral or not.
Okay,
which is a big contention with a lot of people.
I typed what you just wrote, and it doesn't make any sense, and it doesn't sound like anything I've said. You said, contradictions with Christians, they have stealth secularists with the morality they adhere to, and they sacrifice traditional values. They don't have to declare, don't have to have a declaration of divine edict. I don't know what you mean.
They are stealth secularists, given the fact that they have a theistic notion of morality, that they don't need that. They're just adhering to it, but they don't need that, because when you look at the atheistic morality, how they just they weld into each other, but given the fact that they have a theistic belief for their morality, it causes contention with, well, how can you not have morals if you don't believe in God? That's what I'm asking. You have to have God to be moral. Which is a load of bullshit to me. But how do you parse that out when we're basically adhering to the same thing?
I don't know when I said that or what the context is, but I can imagine that when I talked about theists, in particular Christians, being stealth secularists, it's in response to the people saying that, atheists are just borrowing from our moral worldview. And I would correct them and say, no, in fact, I'm not borrowing from your moral worldview. You are secularists in the reason why you have certain values. It's just that you take that and glom a God on it as the justification for why you have those values, because you don't want to, or you aren't capable of doing the legwork to actually justify that from a secular perspective. So in that sense, they're stealth secularists. And yeah, they feel that a divine edict or asserting that there's a God at the grounding of it solves the problem. But the truth is, there is no objection to secular moral systems presented by anyone that is in any way solved by appealing to Christianity or any other God. But I don't exactly know what you're asking.
You answered it properly, but that was from episode 635 on AXP. I didn't get
what
it
does
to
God
you.
need with a starship
properly? What'd you say?
I was referencing a Bill Shatner quote, because it wasn't from the actual Saturday Night Live skit, but when you start calling and saying it's from episode X of such and such, yeah, that does me no good. I'm not going to go look it up.
Well, I made it sound confusing when I gave you that, when I gave that back to you, so I apologize. But you answered that properly.
Okay, doke. As long as you got clarity out of it, I'm fat, dumb, and happy.
Cool.
Yep. Hey, thank you for taking my call, guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Sure. Thanks.
All right. Bye.
Better luck with dealing with family members.
We didn't get any new Theus calls. So what I'll say is we're going to wrap up here. And we're going to finish up here. Matt and I are about to record something that is going to go to my personal patrons today. It'll go to all patrons of the line in a few days, but first access will be on my personal. I don't feel the need to promote my personal over here. So I'm just going to say, go to patreon.com/calltheline and support the line. And in a few days, you're going to get to see what I've already put in the prompts. It's pretty neat and interesting. I have been flooding Matt with all the stuff I've been starting to do with AI because I know I am the one who talks the most shit about it. I'm also the one who loves it the most and is the most obsessed. I have asked a chat GPT 4 thread, which has been trained on Matt's background. I'll be able to do this with other people in the past as well. Knows some things about Matt, knows some other general things about how interviews are conducted. And basically the format of the video we're about to quickly record is it's 10 questions that ChatGPT thinks would be good 10 interview questions, and then comparing that to what ChatGPT thinks Matt's 10 answers will be. So ChatGPT both gave me 10 questions and what it expects Matt, how it expects Matt to answer those questions. And we're going to read those and compare them. And like I said, that'll be available for patrons of the line probably midweekish. I don't know the exact date, but you can watch that. It's an extra little thing that's fun. Patreon.com/calltheline. That's all I got. Oh, no, sorry. I have one more thing. Not this next Sunday, not today, obviously, not next Sunday, but the Sunday following, we are going to see what happens if we start doing the show an hour earlier, because we so often run into the start of Joseph Smith over on Aron Ra's channel, which is something that I often guest on. I would say almost always guest on. We're going to do that to give us a little more breathing room. Had we started this show an hour early and ended at roughly the same time, we would have had the breathing room. We would have been able to go as long as we wanted to go without feeling rushed, but also not infringe on Joseph Smith when that's on. So again, not this Sunday, not next Sunday, but the Sunday following. We're going to start the show an hour earlier, and we'll see what happens. Matt, close the show however you like.
Well, first of all, have you told everybody already who all is going to be on what shows in the coming days?
I did after the second call earlier.
After the second call.
Yeah.
But, well, I'm just going to say that speaking of Patreon, since I very rarely mention it, I got my videos done yesterday going out on my personal Patreon, which is patreon.com/atheistdebates. If you want to chuck a buck towards that Patreon, I would greatly appreciate it. But I wanted to say specifically that the 3 videos that I put up, well, there's 4, because one of them is a link to the video that the debate I did with Hussein. One of them is a review of that debate, maybe a little harsh. Another one is a response to an argument that Jesus was trans. And while I appreciate the goal of the people who created that argument to be better allies, it's a bad argument, and I explain why. And then the third one is actually something I rarely ever do, and this is one of the reasons I mentioned it here, because I'm interested in what people think. I do debate reviews for debates that I'm in. I don't tend to do debate reviews for other people's debates, because despite what some people think, I'm not so arrogant to presume that my way is the right way all the time, and that anybody gives a shit what I think about a Christian and a Muslim having a debate over there. But I did briefly go through the 3 other debates that took place at DebateCon 3 to give kind of high-level thoughts. I didn't go through them in any detail. But if there are debates that people would like me to review in more detail, to specifically say, you know what, I saw this debate and I don't know what to think about it. Can you give those thoughts? Feel free to go over to the Patreon, check that out, and give me some feedback there. I will be more than happy to devote some of my time to a more detailed analysis of arguments other people are making. So on that note, Arden gets back tonight, so I'm going to record this thing with Jimmy, and then I'm going to go pick up my girl after 5 days of absence.
Hell yeah. Thank you, Zoe, for screening. Thank you to our mods. You are all awesome. And, remember to love each other. And from the advice from the beginning, even if you don't think you'll ever need it, you should probably have a will.
I miss you, Andy. I'm going to go on a grocery quest later.
Hell yeah. Do I not have this ready? I'm so unprofessional. Okay, there we go. Good night, everyone.